The following segment is sponsored by Daniel A. White and Associates. It does not necessarily reflect the views of WDEL or Forever Media.
The Rick Jensen Show on 101.7 FM, 1150 AM, WDEL, and streaming to your smart speaker and mobile device.
Well, I've been a very happy client of Dan White and Associates. Dan's a financial planner specializing in retirement income, along with Andrew, Dan, and so many other folks in the office are great people. I'm very, very happy. He's on the phone right now after the news at 1:30 on Wednesdays. Dan calls in with a tip. Dan, thanks very much for being on, sir.
Well, thanks for having me, Rick.
So a lot of people listening have their own businesses. They may have an IRA that they can contribute to, and many people have made mistakes. Sometimes you put in too much, and you go like, "But I had a great year. I want to put it." And no, there's penalties. So if people want to fix that, what do they do, and when can they do that?
Yeah, so the deadline is coming up. I mean, as you said, maybe you made a Roth IRA contribution for last year, and then, you finally got your taxes done and your income was too high and you can't make a Roth contribution. Or maybe you contributed to a traditional IRA, but later discovered, again, your income was too high, and because you're in a 401k plan at work, you can't do a deductible IRA, so that contribution is not deductible. You may have made an IRA contribution and just changed your mind and want the money back. There's good news if you act quickly. You can fix these issues by correcting your 2022 IRA contribution by the upcoming October the 16th, 2023 deadline. So when it comes to timing for correcting any type of contribution, the key deadline is October the 15th of the year following the year for which the excess contribution is made. The statutory deadline is actually the tax filing deadline, including extensions. However, the IRS has said that the applicable deadline for taxpayers who file a timely return is 6 months after the due date for filing that tax return, excluding extensions. So October the 15th of the year. The deadline is always October the 15th, but this year the 15th is on a Sunday, so they moved it to October the 16th. And why is this date so important? Well, if you don't correct it, a 6% penalty applies to excess contributions. And this penalty is not a one-and-done thing. It applies every year that an excess contribution remains in the IRA.
Wow.
So the only way to avoid, every year. So if you put it in, you left it in there 5 years, you're going to owe 6% for 5 years. So,
how do most people find out that they made an excess contribution?
Well, a lot of times, like I said, with Roth, you have to be under a certain income limit. And with traditional IRAs, if you're in a 401k or you and your wife are in a 401k, you can't be above a certain limit. You can put the money in the traditional IRA, but you may have taken a deduction and then you found out, well, we made too much money, we got a year-end bonus, whatever. Then you have to get that money removed. You have to get it out. So the only way to avoid the 6% penalty when an excess contribution occurs is to correct it by this October deadline.
Because I'm wondering if most people actually learn that they did this because they get something from the IRS.
That could be. They might not know because I guess when the accountant finally, I don't know. If you would think your accountant, if you use somebody, would tell you, hey, you took a Roth last year and you couldn't do that because you made too much money. Maybe you go about correcting it. So.
Which is why it's a good idea to pay someone to do taxes. I know.
Yeah.
As cheap as I am, I found, it makes sense to have a professional do that. And so I always have.
Well, there's all these little rules that most people don't think of. They think, I can just throw $6,000 in an IRA and nobody will be the wiser. But again, it comes down, there's all these little tricky rules based on your overall income. So
and then you use one of these online software programs, and I guess they're supposed to be pretty good, TurboTax, stuff like that. But then I see these news stories wherein people are saying, it made a mistake, or I didn't get this, or it got that wrong, and I don't know. I'd rather have an individual I can yell at as opposed to the software and say, well, how did you get that wrong,
Well, that's a great point, Rick, because I had a situation years ago where the guy was using TurboTax, and he took an IRA contribution, and then he brought in his tax return. I looked at it, and I said, did you have any earned income last year? And he goes, no, I'm retired. I don't work, And I said, well, you can't make a contribution to an IRA account if you didn't have any earned income. And I guess TurboTax didn't pick that up in that version or whatever, because he said TurboTax let him do it.
Yeah.
So, well, the IRS ain't going to let you do it. So
it's always best to work with people. Yeah, right. All right, Dan White and Associates.
Yep.
You can give Dan a call anytime, 888-690-8820. And say, listen, I want to sit down, and he doesn't charge anything. Just sit down and meet and talk about your situation, what you want to do, 888-690-8820. And on Sunday mornings at 7 o'clock, it's On the Money. What's going on this Sunday?
Yeah, this week is kind of interesting. We talk a little bit about elder abuse, some retirement account scams, some fraud that has been committed against seniors, and why it pays to work with a competent advisor, because they might be able to nip these things in the bud before they actually go through. So.
Good stuff. On the Money, Sunday morning, 7 a.m. Dan White. Dan, thanks for your call, man. Appreciate it.
All right, go Phils.
Go Phils, exactly. All right.